Hi everybody, this is Vanessa from Fabric Confetti, and today we're going to create my Hello Summer banner. This requires two hoopings, so I'm going to show you how to multi-hoop. And then in a second video, I'm going to show you how we do the borders. So let's get started. Okay, with all my bit of color patterns, you get pretty much the same instructions. What we're going to do is we've cut our fabric 12 inches by a certain length. In this case, the length is 27 inches. And now we're going to mark the vertical center, and then we're going to measure out 3 inches on each side, and we're going to draw lines with a water-soluble marker there too. We're also going to draw a horizontal line 3 inches from the top. I have to do this sideways, so I will explain it as I go. Okay. All right, so here we go. I find it easier to use a 6-inch width ruler. So I lay this on the side of my 12-inch rectangle. And I mark a line with my water-soluble marker. I know you can't see me do this whole thing, but I am doing it the entire length. I'm doing the entire length of the fabric. Okay? The reason I find this easier is because now I just have to plunk this right down in the middle. And this is my 3 inches this way and my 3 inches this way. So that's why I think this is an easier way to do it if you've got a 6-inch ruler. So I put that right down in the middle. That line is right on that line. And I draw a line here and a line here. Lastly, I'm going to say this is my top, so a lot of times I write top on it. And I'm going to measure down 3 inches from the top of that and do a horizontal line. So I'll put this to the side. So we move this like this, and I can zoom in. Okay, we've got a horizontal line 3 inches from the top, and then we have our center line, our center vertical line, and then we have a line 3 inches to the left and 3 inches to the right. So now we're ready to go over to our machine and stitch out the placement line. So let me find that. Okay, so these are the stitch outs that are included in all the patterns, but these are the stitch outs for this pattern. This is going to be hooping 1, and I've drawn this in because it's too hard to see on the camera. But this is what you're going to be stitching out on your stabilizer, not on the fabric, on the stabilizer. Then we're going to line up our fabric with the lines that we have stitched out on the stabilizer. The next step will be a tack down stitch, and then that holds your fabric to the stabilizer. And then lastly, again, because it's white, you don't see it, but this will be your quilting step. And then you start your embroidery. All right, so we're going to go over to the machine and we're going to stitch out our placement line on our stabilizer. Okay, here we are at my machine, and I'm doing this in turquoise so that you can see it. Your quilting is going to be white, so you might want to do this in white so you don't have to keep changing threads, but I want you to see this, so I'm going to be stitching out in a different color. So let's go. I'm using one of the dime magnetic hoops. Okay, let's take it over to the table and we're going to line up the fabric. Okay, you can still not see it very well, so I've taken my pen and I've marked the lines. This is your box, and this is going to line up. That's the left-hand corner, the right-hand corner, and I usually use the bottom. You're going to line up your fabric where you've drawn these lines with that box. So I use pins, and I always use a wool mat because the pins stick right into the wool mat, and you can get a terrific, works terrifically. So we're going to do top left-hand corner, okay, and we're going to lift this up, and we're going to look down, and going to go right into that top left-hand corner of the box that we stitched out on the stabilizer. Top right-hand corner. We're going to come here. We're going to look underneath. We're going to go right into that corner. Okay. Sure. I don't want to get my head on the camera. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come down, and I do this so it doesn't fishtail. So I always use the center line from the bottom. So we're going to come down here. We're going to look underneath. Yep. And I'm going to move it over so I'm right on that line that I've drawn here, down here. So I'm going to put a pin in right there. Okay. I don't want to move things around, okay, too much, because what I don't want it to do is get to move the pins. So I look at it, and that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. All right, so now you can either use 505, but we are using no-show mesh, and no-show mesh is pretty forgiving as far as pinning your fabric to the no-show mesh. So instead of using 505, I'm going to use my pins. So I just lift it up a little bit, put a pin here. I'm going to lift this side up a little bit, put a pin in here. This is the base of it, so I'm going to put a pin down here. You can lift it up just a little bit and put that pin in. You couldn't see that one. And then I'm going to put one pin in over here. There you go. All right. So I've pinned it, and now the next step is it's going to stitch out a basting line. Now, for whatever reason, if that is really off, if it's off just a little bit, that's fine. But if it's really off, you're better off just stopping and using a seam ripper, taking it out, and then trying to line it up again. Okay? So I'm going to go over to the machine, and we're going to stitch out the basting line, and then I'll bring it back and show you. Okay? All right, you might be able to see I stitched out my basting line. That looks pretty darn good. It doesn't always look this good, but this is spot on here, a little bit off there, but it's spot on over here. So now I'm going to put white thread in, and I'm going to start my quilting, and then I'm going to do all the bits of color of my letters. So this will be the quilting, and then I start with red, and then pink, and then yellow, and then green, and then another red, and so on and so forth. Okay? And then it will end up looking like the cover of this stitch out, which is the first two letters of summer and the word hello. Okay, I wanted to just show you before I go on to the letters and the wording to show you the quilting. I've done this a little bit differently. If you have one of my patterns where it's the straight quilting, it's going to be done the same way. The only thing I think what I'm going to tell you to do is these last 2 points is when we line up the next hooping, I'm going to have you draw a line there. Now when we do the straight line quilting, you can literally use that last line to line up the next hooping. But we'll go over that when we get there. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the embroidery. Okay, so here we go. We've finished the first hooping, got all the embroidery. just want to point something out, actually. With all these letters, let me zoom in. With all these letters, there is a triple stitch that goes around the edge, okay? When I create it, that is literally on top. It's completely surrounds, snug, there's no space when I create it. However, you will see with tension and stuff, every once in a while you get a little bit, it goes on or it leaves a little bit of space. That is just the name of the game. No one's going to look at it and look at it differently. It has to do with tension, and it has to do with your fabric. It has to do with all that stuff. That's why I also tell you to do a mid-range color. If I made that color black and it did not end up, there was a space, it would just show up so much more. And it wouldn't look good. So if you stay with kind of a mid-range triple stitch around, if it doesn't stay snug, it's really okay. And if it goes on top a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay, we're at this hooping. Like I explained to you before, this is these 2 points. This point and this point are, if it was straight line quilting, that would be a straight line there, and that would be where you would use that straight line to line up your next hoop. So because we don't have that right now, what we're going to do, I'm going to draw a line from that point to that point. And like we lined up this other hooping, let me go out. Like we lined up the first hooping with these 2 points, we're going to line up this next hooping with these 2 points. Okay, and then the middle line. So I'm going to put another piece of stabilizer in. I'm going to bring up hooping number 2. I'm going to stitch out the placement box, and then we're going to line this up for the second hooping. I'm going to cut this out, and I'll put a new piece of stabilizer in. You can't use this piece of stabilizer. Okay, I've stitched up, I brought up hooping number 2. I stitched out the placement line, and now I'm going to line up the fabric for hooping 2. Like before, what I did is I drew a line, because you can't see it. I'm trying to zoom in and show you. We're going to go for this point and this point, and we're going to line those up. I better switch to a pointer. We're going to line that up with this point and this point, and then we're going to use this line to line up this. Okay? So let's do the first 2 pieces, and then I'll have to scooch my hoop up a little bit. Let's see, let's go like this. All right, I'll start with this one. Right side, right point, and we're going to come right down here. We're going to go right in the stabilizer there at the top of that box. Okay, we're going to go to the left side now. Left side, left point, and we're going to go underneath here. It's hard to see, I know, but we're going to go right underneath here, and we're going to put that right in here. So now that's why the wool mat works. Those go straight down in. Okay, let me push this up. Let's see if I can show the bottom here. Here's my center line. I'm going to come down here right about here. No, you can't see it, so let me push it up a little bit more. There we go. Right about here is where we can see the line from before. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to look underneath. And nope, I'm too far to the left. So look under here. No, now I am. Now this line, this pin is literally right on top of the line. So I've got, go back up, make sure my top ones. So I can zoom out. I have my 3 pins They are correct, okay? They are all lined up with the box below. So again, what I'll do is I'm going to pin my reach right underneath here, and I'll put a pin. Ouch, I went right thing. There we go. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a pin. This is outside the stitching area. That's very key. Okay. You can use 505 as well. Okay. I'm just trying to show you without 505. And then I'm going to put a pin up here. Now, when I take it back over to the machine, it's going to stitch a line straight down here and straight down here. If those two lines are really off, it means I've jiggled something between here and getting to my machine, and I'm better off just taking it back over here, ripping those two seams out, realigning it, and then going back and trying it again. Okay, but I think we're going to be pretty good. So let me take it back over to the machine and see if I can stitch those two lines out. All right, it looks pretty darn good. This is 2 hoopings. So if it had been 3 hoopings, it would only do 2 lines. But because this is only 2 hoopings, it also did a line across the bottom. Okay, so this looks pretty good. So the next step will be the quilting, and then it will go through the steps to stitch out the bits of color for the other letters. Okay, let's go back to the machine. Okay, well, we can see the quilting now, and you can see this space is what it started here, and that space is pretty even with the space above it. Okay, so we did a pretty good job at joining that up. And then here's the rest of the quilting, and now what we will do is go back to the machine, and I will stitch out the rest of the words, and then I will come back and I will explain the next step. All right, so here we are. We finished the last 4 letters, so we've got the whole summer. And now I'm going to cut the fusible off the back, and we are going to stitch the borders on. I've got them here. And in the next video, what I will do is I will show you how to embroider the borders. This line is how we're going to change our machine to sewing mode instead of embroidery mode. And I'm going to put this down. All right. And I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance on this side. Then I will do the same thing for the left hand side. Okay. 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then when those are finished, I just turn these out, pretend I had stitched them. I'm going to do the same thing for the top and bottom. So So this will be the top, and then we'll be stitching that, or we're folding that out, and I'll do the same thing for the bottom. Okay, so I just showed you the next step will be putting the borders on and embroidering those. That will be in the next video. So I'm going to leave you here, and I'm going to go on to get those ready and to show you a little bit more about that. Thank you.